G'day and welcome to my brewery. Cereal mashers play a crucial role in beer brewing, especially with certain grains. Let's have a look. Anyone remembers a little while back, I brewed my Mexican lager. This is version 2. The first version you might remember I used Polenta, instant Polenta, but I did mention you could use normal Polenta. For that you need a cereal mash, and that's why we're here today. This was brewed with a cereal mash. Let's get into it. A cereal mash is used with unmalted or low enzyme grains such as rice, rye, corn and other unmalted grains. These grains store their starches in granules which aren't easily accessed by just soaking in warm water like in a normal mash. The goal of a cereal mash is to gelatinize these starches and make them easily accessible to the enzymes to turn into sugars in your normal mash. Beers made with malted grains, malted wheat, they already contain a whole heap of enzymes, you don't have to worry about them. However, when brewing with raw and unmalted grains, it's necessary to do a cereal mash. I've already mentioned the most common. You have corn, rye, raw oats, even unmalted barley. And each of these grains has a different temperature to get this gelatinization happening. Unmalted barley is 60 to 65 degrees, wheat is 58 to 64 degrees, rye is 57 to 70 degrees, oats is 53 to 59 degrees, corn is 62 to 74 degrees, and rice is 68 to 78 degrees. A cereal mash involves at least 2 phases. First, you gelatinize the unmalted grain, and then you're converting those starches into sugars during the regular mash. A lot of people use flaked or torrefied grains these days. Flaking or torrefying grain also gelatinizes them through breaking down the cellular structures using heat and pressure. But personally, I think it's great to learn these techniques. You can't always get flaked grain, you can't always get malted grain, and it's just good to know. You can put that into your brewing arsenal and brew some more traditional style beers. Let's go and have a look how I did it for this beer. Cheers. So for my cereal mash, I've got my strike water's about 72. I'll have my grain over here, which is about 3.7 kilo of grain. And you need to use around 20% is the rough guess, but they say that's around 700 grams of this, 1.5 pound. And I have a pot up here, it's just a small pot, I don't know, it's about 7 litres or so, 8 litres. And I'm going to put it in there. I've got my induction plate here to bring it to the boil later. There'll be a little bit of conversion in this pot from the cereal mash, but most of the actual conversion is going to happen in the main mash. I have 500 grams of traditional polenta, so that makes it about 1.2 kilograms. So I'm going to start with 3 litres of water. I might have to add another litre. That'll probably do. Save me mucking around. One big scoop. And I'll sit that right there and we'll add the polenta. Give that a stir. So I'm just going to get this 3 litre jug, perfect size. Put water in. You want it fairly loose because often it'll gelatinize up and get a bit thick and stuff. So we'll just see how we go with this 3 litres, which is just over 3 quarts. Nearly 3.5 quarts, I guess. As usual, just mix it up. The thing with corn is it's pretty close to barley, as in you want it between 60 and 70 degrees. I took a little long to set the camera up then, and we lost a little bit of temperature there. We're on the low side. I could heat it up just a touch by turning on, but I don't want to heat it above much. These are really great. These are instant, better than the Kegland ones or the other cheaper ones you can buy. I'll leave a link in the description or a QR code on the screen. These javelins and this battery, I don't think I've changed it in years. Whenever you're heating stuff like this, it's good to stir all the time so you don't scorch. Thing is, with stirring it too, you are losing heat, but you need to stir. If I really want to heat it, I could turn it up a bit. Yeah, 64. Yeah, we're heating up now. I'm on power 3. That's what I use for my big distiller system when I'm distilling on power 3, so I know that's plenty. Yeah, we're up 65. I'm going to turn the power off for a little bit, so I'll just make sure I get it a little bit on the higher end. That'll do. Alright, I'll turn it off. I'm just going to cover that over. I'll just leave it there 15-20 minutes. Alright, let's take a look. In 10 or so minutes, 15 minutes all up since I've put the water in. Doesn't look like much, does it? Now this is the hardest part, bringing it to the boil without it scorching. Now that's still quite liquid in there. If it was thicker than that, I might add some more water, but I'm quite happy with that so far. So we'll turn on the heat again. It can take a while to get up to the boil when especially when you're dealing with a large amount and when you're stirring all the time, but you really want to stir, you don't want to scorch. If you do accidentally scorch a bit, don't be scraping it off the bottom. You're better off actually leaving it on the bottom and just sort of check for burnt. If it smells burnt, then you might not want to use it. You probably don't want to use it. But, you know, if you get just a little bit stuck to the bottom, that's okay. So the idea now is to bring it up to the boil, and you're going to boil for about 20 minutes to half an hour. Like you would, you know, that's how long it usually takes to cook rice or corn or whatever from hard, and you're over boiling it, you know what I mean? You're not looking for al dente. You're looking for a gelatinized mush. While that was mashing for that 15 minutes, I transferred 17 litres over from my HLT to my mash tun, and usually I'd mash in with 20 litres, so I've taken that 3 litres out of here. That's in there. So in the end, all my water numbers will still be right. And I'll add my normal salts I would to a 20 litre, because this is going in and it's going to get mixed into the mash. So everything as normal, except I've taken the 3 litres out of there because it's in there. You really got to keep an eye on it. As I said, it'll thicken up and become like porridge, and you know what that's like when you boil it and you don't stir it. This is exactly the same. This low level, it pulses on and off a bit. But as long as it's not scorching, I'm happy about that. I'm not too worried at all. You're trying to cook it, so you don't have to worry about a rolling boil, you know, a big fierce hard boil. You just want to make sure it's staying nice and hot. So in my case, the polenta cooks. They're starting to thicken up too. About halfway through now. It's thickening up. I don't know if you can tell on the camera. Oh! We're not far off. We've probably only got about 10 minutes left maximum. You can see it's getting thicker and we've boiled off a fair bit. I'm not sure exactly how much we've boiled off. But so I'm just going to add, this isn't out of my mash tun, this is out of my HLT. I'm just going to add a little bit back. It's not going to hurt. You can always keep an eye on the level of when you first put the water in and the grain in. Yeah, that'll take a little while to get back up to the boil. Not long though, that was 75 degrees or something, 76 degrees that water I put in. You do got to be careful, it is like lava or whatever. It's, you know, boiling and spitting out as it gets thicker. So it can make a bit of a mess. And burn you if it lands on you. Just adding that, well, I don't know what it was, somewhere between half a litre and a litre. Has loosened it up nicely. Alright, I'm going to call that it. Half an hour, it's been over half an hour now. Been around 40 minutes of boiling. They say on the packet even boiling to cook it takes half an hour. So it was in the hot water for, you know, 20 minutes first, and then now it's been nearly an hour in hot water. So if that's not cooked, I don't know what is. So I'll just turn that off and we'll get the mash organised. You can cool that down with cold water to your mash temp and add it to your mash temp at the same temperature. I'm going for 65 degrees, but I'm not. I'm just going to mash in a little bit lower than I normally would, and then I'm going to add that. I'm not too worried if I overshoot temperatures, but I don't want to sit under temperature for too long. I'd rather be a little bit over temperatures, as long as you're not in mash out temperature, and then over the hour or so of mash it'll come down to the right temperature. If I start too low and I muck around and leave it too low, bang, it's all going to be simple sugars. I want to keep something in this beer. This is going to help. Mashing at 65 is where I did the last one and I loved it, so I'm doing it again. So I'm actually at 666, where I normally, for a 65 mash, you know, I'd be up in the 70, around 70 or something to mash in, maybe even higher. I've got my 17 litres in there, 3 litres short. I've got a little bit of lactic, about 3 mil or so. Might be different for you, and some salts, not much salts, a little bit of calcium carbonate, and a little bit of gypsum, and that's it. I do have some rice hulls since that polenta's a bit gluggy, so I might throw some in. I'll put a bit more in near the end. Down, right down now to the 65, so it doesn't heat again unless it has to. Make sure we're mixed in well. There's not much grain here. There's 3.5 kilo, or 3.7 kilo, but I took about 0.7 of a kilo nearly out, so it's about 3 kilo I've just gone in then, which I don't know, it's about just over 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds, something like that. I'll add some more rice hulls. Normally I wouldn't need it for a beer like this, but because of this glunky stuff, Might just put a bit in. Those stirs. No scorching at all, not even a little bit. That's good. Make sure you give it a good stir, eh? So we've just mashed in. I've just put the lid on, as you saw, and we're at 66.1. That's perfect for me. Yeah, it would have been perfect to be 65. But as I said before, you're better off being a little bit over than a little bit under if you're trying to mash at a certain temperature. I'm at 65 and we're just sitting 66. So that's about it. You just continue on like normal. Everything went fine in this brew. As you saw the beer earlier. The bonus is you get a little bit of a decoction thrown in there too when you're boiling that grain. Do you have to do a cereal mash? No, of course you don't. If you've got access to flaked grains and malted grain, that's all you need to use. But there's lots of people that say you get a lot more flavour out of polenta than you do flaked corn. But as I said earlier, I think it's good to learn these things. You never know when you might have to use them. You might get a big bag of polenta or some other grain from someone and you want to use it, or you grow it yourself. If you grow grain yourself, it's easier to do a cereal mash than it is to malt the grain yourself. I have malted grain at home, and while a little bit's easy, once you start doing bigger amounts, it gets really hard. Hope you made it to the end and enjoyed that video. Like, subscribe, share if it helped you, all that sort of thing. Consider joining my Patreon, because without my patrons these videos couldn't continue, and a big thank you goes out to my current patrons. On my Patreon there's a full-length version of this video, yes, even longer than this one. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Let's go and have a look how I did it for this beer. Shit.